Hey guys, this is John, and I'm playing dimICC in the 5-minute pool on ICC. Haven't said that before. Alright, so dimICC has a rating of 2265, and we might get a setup just like we did in the other game against Cascade. It's headed that way, except they play d6. So I will play b3. This is a good way of proceeding for white. Often you get some nice little positions out of this. I think c4 is the proper response to black's aggression with the c-pawn. Black is trying to open the diagonal here. Okay, so they're not taking yet. I could play bishop b2. I could also play d5, but they might move this knight and try to get at this rook here. So let's just play the bishop to b2. And if they somehow move this knight and try to pressure d4, I think I can simply play e3 and defend that point. It would be interesting for them to try to do so, but probably not good. I mean, if knight e4, I could even play just knight bd2. Okay, so they're letting me push d5 if I want. And I guess their argument is they're going to play knight a5 and then maybe go for b5 later. It's an interesting argument. Probably just knight c3 is decent. Yeah, let's just play this. Bring the knight out. We do slightly disrupt like the dark square bishop defending d4, but after black takes twice on d4, it's not a big deal. Okay, rook b8. So black is persisting in not addressing the center here. I'm tempted to take and then play knight a4, attacking the pawn. But b6 probably defends, although then knight e5 is very interesting. Let's try that. So take, and then we're going to go right here. I could also trade first, but I feel like this is better. If queen a5, then bishop c3 looks nasty for them. Just check this player out since I'm unfamiliar with them. They have a peak 5-minute rating of 2353. About 750 games played. So I'm playing for favorable simplifications, as is my custom, right, guys? Okay, so let's take. I've never met a trade I didn't like. Okay, that's not entirely true, but for those of you who follow the channel, you can sympathize with my last statement. So queen d2, I'm just trying to bring a rook to d1, also maybe queen e3. Black might try to lash out with something like b5, but I feel like they're going to have to solve this congestion in their position soon. Maybe queen c1 or something to that effect was more accurate on the previous move. Okay, here I think I can win a pawn. Take, knight takes c5. And if knight takes, I have queen check. So that wins a pawn for me. You can take with a rook, but that's clearly not part of black's plans. I think that would be an admission that b5 was mistaken by them. Yep, he saw it. So he is going to take with the rook. Okay, so now this knight is loose. I'm looking at discoveries, but probably simpler is just something like rook fd1. Yeah, let's just play that way. Line up against the queen. Probably this queen has to vacate the d8 square. I don't see anything else looking too great for them. I'm just going to try to play somewhat quickly and utilize the pressure that I have. Rook c1, let's just play it. I don't see anything crushing at the moment. Rook c1 introduces c-file possibilities, though. Maybe even knight d4 is a cool looking idea. And if knight takes, queen takes d4 check, c takes d4, rook takes c7 at the end. So that's something I'll consider. I see some neat possibilities there. Like then, not only am I attacking the knight and the pawn on d4, bishop c6 could be a problem for him. This move seems provocative. So if I take c5, it's not really working. I can play a3. What's your plan if I just play a3? Where are you going? Looks like you got to go right back to c6, in my estimation. All right, let's do that. And then b4 and also that knight d4 move look good, but b4 might be even better. So knight d4, knight takes, queen takes, pawn takes, rook takes. b3 is loose at the end. I don't like that. So let's do this instead. So he gave me a couple tempi for free right there. Like knight c6, all that did was induce me to play a3, which I don't think is in black's best interest. This just seems really foolish, actually. Black's king on g7 always makes them feel a little uncomfortable too, because I could throw in a check on the long diagonal at a given moment. Okay, so here we can take c5. That much is certain. We can also play knight c3 and hit the rook, and then maybe go b5 after that. I'm kind of liking that even better. Somehow that seems like really nice for us. If I take c5, the position somewhat stabilizes. Although it's a pawn. It's a pretty clean pawn too. You know what, I'm going to do this though and try to establish this pawn on b5. Because I figure that black's c and a pawns are always going to be weak, but I might not have a chance to play my pawn up to b5. I mean, this might be a window of opportunity that I have to take advantage of. So now if knight e5, I have stuff like knight d5 if I want. Could always play a4 and just support that pawn. Okay, knight here looks very natural and strong. I'm also attacking the a5 pawn in addition to the queen. So black is on the retreat. a4. Yeah, a4 looks simple. Okay, so now I'm looking at checks, and if I check, the king is going to have to step somewhere really bad, after which there's discovered attack potential. Yeah, so check. I mean, if king g8, knight f6 is winning material, king h6 looks patently ridiculous, although possibly forced. So let's just throw this in first. Okay, so I can win the queen here if I want. Knight f6 check. Take, rook takes, queen takes f6 at the end. Or queen takes a5, actually, is probably even easier. Yeah, black's not coming out of that in any reasonable shape. I have a minute 23, just got to watch that a little bit. I think taking this pawn is best. Just grab that a pawn, attack the knight here. c5 also weak. Have to go through contortions to even save that knight, like rook d7 or something. Yep. Okay, let's bring this back. This looks interesting. So I'm going to send the knight up to d3, and also I open the bishop, so I have a lot of influence on this long diagonal now. Let's bring this up. Probably knight b4, just making sure my queen doesn't get trapped. Yeah, I don't see how it would get trapped, so let's do that. And now knight a6 is forking the two rooks. Yeah, black resigns. Okay, so black's opening strategy backfired on them. I don't know about keeping the tension on d4 for that long. It's possible. I think black demonstrated that you can try to play this way, but you always run the risk of white taking or playing d5 at an inopportune moment. And the way they played it, they were trying to get me to play d5 so that they could play knight a5 and then go for b5 counterplay on the queen side. But taking and then playing knight a4 seemed to pinpoint this weakness here. And at this moment, if they had played b6, my plan was to play knight e5. That's what I was going for. And if knight takes knight, then bishop takes e5, and this rook is going to be lost. At least that's how it seemed to me. So let's go back and take a look at that. So a fianchetto system. I know this stuff looks really harmless, but let me tell you, there's a lot to be learned here from both sides of the board. Even like this position after d4, d6, players who are like e4 players might not be familiar with this stuff, but there's just like tons of theory from this, like g3, king's Indian positions. Even if black plays other moves too, like if you go watch the previous video I posted against Cascade, those symmetrical positions, same thing here, but with black's pawn on d5, they're rich. They're very rich positions. So even though the play at the outset looks slow, that doesn't mean you can't have an interesting game. So here I played b3, black went c5. So I don't really want to take when this knight is a move away from attacking my rook on a1. So c4 is a good way to play this position. And I was just expecting black to take and then maybe play like bishop d7 or something with a normal looking position, but they played a6 and persisted in keeping the tension. Let me just add in the engine right here. So the engine wants to push d5, but I was trying to avoid this. I didn't think it was necessary to quite define the central structure like so. Although white's pawn on d5 is pretty nice, and black is going to be banking a lot on b5 or possibly an e6 pawn break. Just a different type of game. So I played knight c3, even though this disrupts the coordination. If black were to take a couple times, my queen doesn't feel uncomfortable opposing this bishop because there's not a lot of great discoveries by black here. Like knight d5 and knight e4 are not possible. My queen would take in either case. So there's no discovery that's going to hurt white too bad. Meanwhile, this bishop is opened up, attacking b7. So black played rook b8, and yep, the engine thinks this move is good. D takes c5, d takes c5, and now I played knight a4. Queen c1 is also a suggestion. Maybe trying to go rook d1 and attack that queen. Knight a4. Yeah, and after this, it started to get pretty nice for me because black has just trouble completing their development, for one thing. Queen d6 is a pretty precise move, top computer move. So defending this pawn on c5 this way. I guess I could play for maybe pressure against that pawn. Maybe use this rook instead. Black could go for b5. Yeah, queen d6 is somehow hard to find. It's not a normal way to support a pawn on c5 in this sort of structure. So I'm not surprised black didn't find it. So the line I was demonstrating was b6 and now knight e5. This was the line I was calculating. And now if takes and bishop takes, this rook is caught. Can't go here or to b7 because of the light square bishop. Maybe black could do this. This is one line I was just thinking about. Because if I take here, then they can take b8. I suspect that white is still better here. Bishop d4, queen c2. But this might be black's best chance from that position instead of queen d6. Or best chance after b6, let's say. But they play knight d7. I just went queen d2, getting ready to bring a rook to the d file. I thought maybe queen c1 was more accurate, so if b5 takes, I'm already on the pawn with two pieces. But in view of that tactical detail that went unseen in the game, which is if a takes b5, I can take here, then I actually am attacking the c-pawn with queen d2. As if knight takes knight, there's queen c3 check with the fork. So that was a nice thing for me to notice. And black saw it too, because they had to change their plan with rook takes b5, and this is bad, because now b5 has just amounted to a pawn weakness for them. And they had to take here. Two pawn weaknesses, actually. Doubled, or isolated A and C pawns. I was just looking to play moves that increase the pressure and weren't too hard to find, like rook fd1, rook ac1. These are somewhat automatic moves in this position. I worry that they might be autopilot moves, but they look good, so we can play them quickly and be pretty confident in them. Yeah, and I don't know what black was doing here with knight b4. This was just a bad idea, but their position is almost in shambles. As you can see, they haven't completed their development, and we have lots of targets. Let's say they had just played something neutral, like, I don't know, let's just say e6. I don't think that's necessarily a good move either. But I was mentioning the possibility of a move like knight d4, opening lines down the c-file. So if pawn takes, then I can get at c6, either with my rook or my bishop. And if knight takes, then I have this check. And let's say take and take here. And I think this endgame is awesome for white because I'm attacking this pawn. One detail I saw is that if e5, I have the bishop coming in to fork here and here. And black loses material. So I was looking for a time to move this knight away and open up my bishop and maybe exploit black's problems on the c-file tactically. But as played, knight here. I actually could play knight d4 even in this case. I didn't think about that move. But that's pretty similar to the last line as far as the strength of this knight jump opening the bishop. But a3 also just looked normal and forces the knight right back to c6. Yep, now I get b4 in. So I was able to advance my queenside pawns with absolutely no time penalty. And now if black takes, they're just going to get killed after knight d4. Yeah, there's a pin on the knight. I'm attacking the rook. We have 3 pieces bearing down on c6. It's over. So they played a5, and now I could just bank the pawn by taking on c5, either with the knight or the pawn. But knight c3, as I played, seemed better. Passing it up, but I get to go b5, and I love this protected passed pawn that I have. And c5 remains weak, as does a5. Okay, I'm glad that the engine validates that idea, because I wasn't quite sure about that, but this seems like the way to play, given that I have the initiative. I've got the momentum in the position. I don't have to settle for a pawn. The strength of my pieces and my ability to create threats is more important, in my opinion. Yeah, so now black has to move the knight. I get knight d5 in. Probably they should have moved the knight to e5 and taken their chances, but they went this way. Knight d5 attacking the queen. Yeah, here I can just play a4 and support the pawn. Yeah, and that's just a blunder. Queen c3. I don't think any of these moves were really tough to find. It's all pretty forced. I think black can try king h6. That's the only move that doesn't run into huge knight discovery problems, but check here. Oh, that's a cool maneuver that the engine is saying. And then I fork the king and the rook at the end. It's also losing. Yep, so this happened. I win the queen. I thought the a5 pawn was much better to take than f6. So I went after that. 2 connected pawns. Black's coordination is terrible over there. And now I just wanted to maneuver the knight. Computer says knight d2. I don't think I saw that knight d2 was possible. My queen would be defending that square, but knight e1 also seemed good. I could take c5, but I just didn't want to have to even worry about something like this happening. This might still be good for white, but why even give black the satisfaction and cause yourself the stress and having to calculate something like this? Black's pieces kind of coming to life. So knight e1, and yeah, we're up 2 points of material. We've got these pawns. Black's pieces are all bunched up over here. It's interesting how winning this is, despite white technically being only up 2 points. It's like +7. Yeah, because black just has nothing in the way of coordination, is the reality here. Yeah, I can just bring up my pieces. Yep, and he soon resigned. Okay, I like the way I handled this. I'm proud of the way I played, really from the outset of the game. I think this was an all-around good game on my part. So, wish I could play like this all the time. Granted, black made some mistakes, and they gave me a lot of unnecessary opportunities. Like this whole daredevil strategy, I would question. And then white has this nagging initiative, so black's strategy backfired. Yeah, b5, they overlooked that if a takes b, knight takes c5 was possible. And then knight b4 was too much after a3 and then b4. All right, fun one. Hope you guys enjoyed that. And I'll be back again soon with another video. Talk to you guys later. Bye.